Chapter 1. Buffering Reality. The air in Miles Nash's Tampa apartment didn't merely register as hot. It manifested as a tangible, oppressive force that pressed against every inch of exposed skin and seeped into the very fabric of the cramped living space. It hung thick and unmoving, a viscous, humid blanket that clung relentlessly to the peeling wallpaper, the worn upholstery of the second-hand sofa, and the cheap laminate surfaces of the coffee table. Overhead, the ancient ceiling fan labored with a persistent, rhythmic groan, its blades slicing through the molasses-thick atmosphere with a futile, almost pathetic determination. Each rotation stirred the heavy air just enough to offer a fleeting illusion of relief before surrendering once more to the suffocating stillness. Outside the grimy window, the relentless Florida sun hammered the cityscape into a shimmering haze of submission, baking the asphalt streets and bleaching the color from the world. Inside, Miles Nash hammered the keys of his aging laptop with a ferocity that bordered on desperation, his fingers flying over the worn plastic like a convict tunneling through stone with a plastic spoon. Sweat beaded profusely on his furrowed brow, tracing glistening paths through the coarse stubble shadowing his jawline before dripping onto the keyboard below, each droplet landing with a tiny, accusatory splatter on the faded letters. He was supposed to be immersed in the 1:30 p.m. broadcast of Passions of Willow Creek. Specifically, the episode featuring the long-anticipated climactic scene starring Olivia Riley as Samantha Banks, the complex, morally ambiguous character Miles himself had meticulously crafted years ago, transforming her from a fragile, timid heiress into a formidable, vengeful titan of the daytime drama landscape. This was back when his name carried weight in the writers' rooms of Los Angeles, back when his vision shaped storylines and propelled ratings. Now, that name felt like a relic, and he was reduced to just another anonymous occupant sweating in a cheap, sun-baked apartment in Tampa, his eyes fixed not on Samantha's triumph, but on the endlessly spinning wheel of doom that mocked him from the center of his laptop screen. "Come on," Miles hissed through gritted teeth, jabbing the refresh button with a violence that threatened to snap the key. The browser flickered briefly, a cruel taunt, offering a tantalizing sliver of the show's familiar opening credits, a sweeping, elegant shot of the imposing Willow Creek Manor, before collapsing back into a featureless expanse of pixelated gray. The stark, unforgiving message flashed. Internet outage. His ISP's infuriatingly cheerful automated voice, encountered during a frustrating call 2 hours prior, had promised restoration shortly. Shortly, in the lexicon of Tampa telecommunications, apparently translated to sometime before the inevitable heat death of the universe, leaving Miles stranded in a digital desert. He slammed the laptop shut with a sharp, echoing crack that reverberated unnervingly in the confined space. The abrupt silence that followed felt heavier than before. His gaze fell to the coffee table, strewn with the scattered, dog-eared pages of his current, soul-crushing gig, Nash and Nelson, a low-budget, formulaic courtroom drama airing on a minor cable network. The leaden, predictable dialogue stared back at him, each cliché-ridden line a mocking indictment of his diminished circumstances. Willow Creek had been something more. Whether high art or gloriously addictive pulp, it had possessed verve, intelligence, and a passionate audience. This was just noise, static filling the void left by his exile from relevance. A wave of frustration surged within him, sharp and acidic, burning hotter than the Florida air. Missing Olivia Riley's pivotal scene wasn't merely an act of fandom, it was a critical professional necessity. He needed to witness how the current crop of writers, the successors he viewed with profound skepticism, handled Samantha Banks. Had they preserved her razor-sharp wit, her deliciously dangerous moral ambiguity, the intricate layers he had woven into her DNA? Or had they, as he feared, sanded her down into another weepy, predictable heroine, a pale shadow of her former formidable self? The gnawing uncertainty was an itch deep beneath his skin, maddening and impossible to scratch, without seeing the scene unfold. Driven by restless energy, Miles paced the narrow strip of worn carpet that served as a no-man's land between the sagging sofa and the cramped kitchenette. The heat seemed to radiate from the very walls, baked relentlessly by the afternoon sun. A profound silence pressed in, broken only by the monotonous, high-pitched whine of the struggling ceiling fan and the distant, rhythmic thump of bass emanating from a neighbor's overpowered stereo. In this stifling isolation, Miles felt profoundly unmoored, severed from the vibrant, high-stakes world he had helped build, a world now playing out without him, just beyond his digital reach. The feeling was a physical ache, a phantom limb reminding him of what was lost. A sharp, unexpected rap cut through the oppressive quiet, startling him. Hope, sudden and fierce, flared in his chest. The ISP repairman. Salvation incarnate. He practically flung the door open. The man standing on the threshold looked as if he'd been dipped directly into Tampa Bay, his faded blue uniform shirt plastered darkly to his chest and back, sweat gleaming on his forehead and neck. A heavy tool belt hung low on his hips, and he clutched a smudged, ruggedized tablet in one hand. "Nash?" he asked, his voice weary but carrying a veneer of professional politeness.
"Yeah."
"Thank God you're here." Miles breathed out, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he stepped aside to grant entry. "Down since noon. I missed something incredibly important." He left the nature of the something deliberately vague, unwilling to expose the full depth of his desperation to a stranger. The repairman, Derek, according to the slightly crooked plastic name tag pinned above his shirt pocket, gave a curt nod that didn't quite reach his tired eyes. He moved past Miles with practiced efficiency, his gaze sweeping the small apartment in a quick, professional assessment. It took in the overflowing bookshelf crammed with well-thumbed screenwriting manuals and thick volumes chronicling the history of soap operas, the slightly crooked Willow Creek 10th anniversary poster hanging beside a peeling promotional flyer for Nash and Nelson, the chaotic scatter of script pages across the coffee table. His eyes paused, almost imperceptibly, on the dusty glass frame housing Miles's sole relic of past glory, his Emmy nomination certificate for outstanding writing in a drama series, a stark reminder of what once was. Derek crouched beside the blinking modem/router combo unit tucked awkwardly beside the TV stand. "Heat like this," he muttered, pulling a cable tester from his belt. "The old copper lines out there, they just get cranky. Like an old dog in the sun." He expertly clipped a connector onto a cable. "Been dozens of calls just today. Systems overloaded." Miles hovered nearby, unable to contain his restless energy. The silence stretched, thick with the ambient heat and the precise, methodical clicks of Derek's tools. Miles felt an irrational compulsion to assert himself, to transcend the identity of just another sweaty, frustrated tenant complaining about his Wi-Fi. "It's critical I get back online," he stated, aiming for a tone of casual authority that he hoped masked his underlying anxiety. "Professional reasons. I used to write for Willow Creek. The show that's on right now." He gestured vaguely towards the closed laptop. Derek glanced up from his crouched position, his expression remaining professionally neutral, devoid of recognition. "Which one's that?" "Passions of Willow Creek," Miles elaborated, unable to suppress a flicker of pride that crept into his voice despite the setting. "Biggest daytime drama for 5 years running. I was head writer. Created Samantha Banks. You know, the corporate takeover arc? The poison champagne twist? All mine." He watched Derek's face, hoping for a spark of recognition, a flicker of respect. Derek simply plugged a cable back into the modem, his movements efficient, detached. "Huh." It was a non-committal sound, devoid of inflection. He didn't look impressed. He looked profoundly hot, weary, and eager to move on to the next call. His eyes, however, flickered again around the apartment, taking in the peeling paint near the ceiling, the mismatched furniture clearly acquired from thrift stores or curbsides, the palpable air of faded dreams and diminished expectations that permeated the small space. Miles's boast, intended to elevate him, landed with a dull, echoing thud, its inherent hollowness laid bare against the stark reality of the cramped, humid apartment. Miles Nash, the architect of Willow Creek's golden age, the creator of Samantha Banks, was revealed in that moment as precisely what he was, just another man sweating through his undershirt, pleading with a technician for the basic lifeline of broadband. Heat flushed Miles's neck and ears, a wave of humiliation washing over him. He cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. "Anyway, deadlines," he mumbled, a weak attempt to salvage the interaction, to reassert a semblance of professional purpose. "Almost there," Derek said, his voice devoid of any judgment but saturated with bone-deep fatigue. He tapped the screen of his tablet a few times. "Signal's weak, but it's there. Rebooting now." He pressed a button decisively. The modem/router lights blinked out entirely, plunging the corner into momentary darkness, then flickered back to life one by one, settling into a reassuring, steady green. "Try it," Derek instructed, straightening up with a soft grunt, gathering his tools. Miles lunged for the laptop, flipping it open with trembling fingers, mashing the browser icon repeatedly. The page loaded. Instantly, gloriously, a testament to Derek's competence. But his heart plummeted like a stone. It wasn't Willow Creek. It was a garish, overly enthusiastic commercial for denture adhesive, featuring improbably ecstatic seniors. He'd missed the entire episode. Samantha's moment was gone, vanished into the ether. Damn it. The curse ripped out of him raw and guttural, a sound of pure, unadulterated frustration. He slammed a fist down onto the arm of the sofa, a cloud of dust puffing up from the worn fabric. Derek watched him for a brief moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes, perhaps a fleeting trace of pity swiftly buried beneath layers of professional detachment and sheer exhaustion. "Connection solid now," he stated flatly, already moving towards the door. "Have a better afternoon." He pulled the door open and stepped out into the hallway. "Thanks," Miles managed, the word tight and clipped, devoid of any gratitude. He didn't look up from the screen, now displaying a relentlessly perky local weather forecaster promising yet more days of infernal heat and humidity. The door clicked softly shut behind Derek. The apartment instantly felt smaller, denser, the silence louder and more oppressive than before. The sweet relief of the restored internet connection was utterly drowned beneath a crashing wave of humiliation and bitter disappointment. He stared blankly at the weather girl's artificially bright smile, her chirpy predictions a cruel counterpoint to the storm brewing inside him. Then something shifted. A subtle hardening occurred behind Miles's eyes. The spark of frustration didn't extinguish. It ignited into something fiercer, more defiant. He hadn't seen Samantha's climactic moment? Fine. So be it. He knew Samantha Banks, her motivations, her intellect, her ruthless elegance, better than the hacks currently running Willow Creek into the ground ever could. He knew her bones. His fingers flew over the keyboard with sudden, decisive energy, opening a blank document. The cursor blinked expectantly. With a surge of defiant energy, he typed a title, bold and uncompromising across the top of the screen, Samantha's Gambit, alternate scene. He began to type furiously, possessed. The keys clattered under his fingers like rapid-fire percussion, a counter-rhythm to the drone of the fan. He didn't write fan fiction. He wrote correction. He wrote reclamation. His Samantha didn't storm the boardroom with predictable fury. She entered with glacial, terrifying calm. She didn't expose the villain with a conveniently discovered hidden recording. She dismantled him with devastating precision, revealing a complex stock manipulation she had meticulously orchestrated weeks prior, a spider patiently waiting at the center of her web. The dialogue that flowed onto the screen crackled with a sharp intelligence, the layered menace, the dark wit he had originally imbued her with. This was Samantha Banks resurrected in her true, formidable glory, untouched by the clumsy hands of lesser writers. Sweat dripped unnoticed onto the laptop's trackpad. The oppressive heat, the shabby confines of the apartment, the dismissive presence of Derek, all faded into insignificance. Only the glowing screen, the rapidly filling page, and the resurrected surge of his own creative power remained. He typed with a possessed fervor, pouring every ounce of his frustration, his bruised ego, and his undeniable, simmering talent onto the digital page. He was Miles Nash. He had once made Willow Creek sing with intricate plots and unforgettable characters. He would do it again, right here, right now, in this suffocating concrete box under the indifferent Florida sun. Outside, Tampa continued to bake, oblivious. Inside, Miles waged a silent, furious war against the perceived incompetence of his successors, keystroke by defiant keystroke. He was blissfully unaware that the universe, or perhaps just the harsh realities he'd fled in Los Angeles, was watching with detached amusement, or perhaps growing annoyance, at his solitary descent. The consequences he thought he'd left behind weren't finished with him. They were merely buffering, gathering momentum, preparing to crash into his precarious present with the jarring abruptness of a poorly conceived, contrived plot twist. But for now, in the eye of this self-created storm, there was only the relentless rhythm of the keys, the glow of the screen, and Samantha Banks, finally, exactly as she should be.